Ali Bey, thank you. All of you, thank you very much for hanging in there. This is like the end of the second day. Bravo, persistence, patience, perseverance. What Ali Bey did not tell you is that I'm sort of like your ultimate yabancı, because this is my 13th year in Turkey. 13 years in Turkey. That is 25% of my life. Not my professional life, my whole life. And I still don't speak Turkish. Yeah, exactly. I still haven't made up my mind if I support Fenerbahçe or Galatasaray. I have a secret admiration for Beşiktaş. Secret admiration for Beşiktaş. And the best thing about making up your mind about Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe is that you sort of get to tease your friends who support either one of those teams when something goes wrong. So my last WhatsApp to my two hardcore Galatasaray fans was hashtag Emmanuel Adebayor 3. 13 years is the longest period I've lived in one country continuously. My first 12 years in life was in my home country, in Egypt. Egypt, and now 13 years in Turkey. Egypt and Turkey have a lot in common. Incredible countries, very, very special. I love them in an incredible way. I wish they were closer. This is not a political statement. I'm not a political activist. I'm interested in human development, in technology, in social and economic development. But I wish our countries were closer. Both countries have incredible history, incredible history. Both of them have their fair share of challenges today and opportunities tomorrow. Incredible opportunities that are really worth working very, very hard to make them actually change. I'm not sure why the world would call us emerging markets or third world. Emerging means that you will just emerge. It will happen without work. That is not true. You have to work to emerge. You have to work to develop. You have to innovate to emerge, and you have to innovate to develop. I also not sure why they would call us the third world, because in some sense, in some areas, we don't deserve number 3. In some other areas, we can be number 2, or maybe even number 1. Digital may help. Digital may help. This is my second TEDx talk, my second TED Talk. The first talk was in Cairo in May 2011, exactly 6 years ago, few months after the revolution in Egypt. The revolution that had the big slogans of Aish, for you it's work, for us it's bread or life. Aish, freedom, justice, and dignity. I've always had good life in Egypt, very good life in Egypt. And as I said, I'm not and was not a political activist. I always believed in the basic human rights of every individual. I always thought quality education was key. I always thought healthcare was incredibly important. And I always believed in justice for all. However, at that time, with that revolution, there was a small reminder for me, or maybe a very, very big reminder, that feeling free, that freedom has to be added to the basic human rights of every individual, at least in my own vocabulary. It was easy for me. One of the most difficult things about TED Talks and so on is finding a title, okay? It's not easy. It was easy for me to do it in Egypt, and I chose the title in Egyptian. This is not a typing mistake or an English mistake. It's not in Egypt. In Egyptian, I meant talking in an Egyptian language. Of course, you may know that there's no Egyptian language. There's an Arabic language, there's an English, there's an Egyptian dialect or style of speaking. But what I actually meant, that if Egyptians really connected, really connected, inside Egypt, outside Egypt, they can actually use their diversity in order to develop each other and inspire each other and make Egypt a much better place. That was the idea of the talk. But in reality, that idea, that TEDx session turned into action. It actually turned into action because what happened as we spoke about this idea, and then we started thinking, really, what do we do about it? There is a way to do about it. There is a way to connect Egyptians, or at least to try to connect more and more Egyptians. Yes, this is not going to be a movement that is going to surpass or be bigger than all movements, but even if you get two to connect and communicate, they can develop each other and they can inspire each other. And what actually happened was the birth of a foundation that I set up with my family and some of my friends that is called Masr. Masr is Misr, okay? So we say Masr, you say Misr, small difference. Masr.bokra, so it's like Egypt.tomorrow. And we started working on many, many aspects, mainly focused on connection, development, mentoring. We went to schools, we went to universities, we went to entrepreneurs, we worked with the entities that gave funds for young entrepreneurs. We went to all the youth syndicates and so on and connected with them and did different sessions and did different workshops. I was amazed by the number of volunteers who just put time. Everyone is a volunteer. All the coaches are volunteers all the time. People travel in and do amazing things. And then we decided to do a little bit more and actually try and tap on some of the, what do you call it, soft power of creativity, of art. And we actually did a film festival for young Egyptian filmmakers. My son, who's a young filmmaker in New York, became actually the director or the architect of this film festival, again, remotely. It's, again, the power of digital. And so we fast forward to today and trying to find a title. Okay. Thank you. 20 seconds too early, but it made the point. So, fast forwarding to today and talking digital, 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 thinking this world that is your world, that you are part of, is digital. My world, even my new job that I just started a few weeks back in Microsoft, which is again about this digital transformation. I started thinking of us, of you, in this digital world and trying to come up with a title. And then it hit me that in 1981, the band The Police came up with this single, which was called Spirits in the Material World, that we played a little bit of now, just as a reminder, so that you know that there was actually, none of you, of course, was there in 1981 and remembering. Okay. I know that I'm talking to the young and young at heart crowd here. So basically, just try to inherit a bit of that title and remind you of that. If you actually look at the words that The Police, the lyrics of the song, Spirits in the Material World, the words written by The Police, it may be a case in some countries to actually call the police, but I'll leave you to find that out on your own. But back in 1981, so back 1981, and growing up in Egypt in 1981, everyone who's at that time, late 70s, early 80s, would remember that the Egyptian television had only 2 channels. So your choices were basically you watch channel 1, you watch channel 2, or you go to bed. Of course, there were other exciting things like reading a book or studying, which is even more and more exciting. And then they had this program, which was actually called We Chose For You. We Chose For You. Sizin için seçtik. Okay? اخترنا لك. And the idea of the program, every Wednesday night, 2 hours or 2.5 hours of few songs that they chose for you, few songs, few clips, some sport clips, and then some sort of a TV show. The $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, Colombo, something like that. We got the odd Sezen Aksu song or, you know, Iranian songs as well, and so on. And maybe 1 or 2, but very, very short areas from opera. I think the issue there is, you can look at this and say, oh, that's bad, because you're being limited and you're being controlled, okay? And that may be valid. On the other side, you may say there was also some good in that, because everyone was connected. Everyone was seeing some stuff. The next day when we go back to college or school or work, we tend to discuss the same thing. We need to talk, did you see this song? Did you see this movie? Did you relate to that? Does it make sense to you? And so on. And so there's, versus today, when my sons come to visit us, and we sit together in the living room, the four of us, in theory, watching the TV, or watching something in common. In reality, we would probably be doing 4 different things at the same time. So there was some issues on control, big limitations on choice, and there was also some good in that. There was also some good in that. By the way, this element of we chose for you can still happen, and it still happens in different parts of the world. Maybe you still have more channels, and you have on demand, and you have something like this, but sometimes by limiting some of the contributors, then some people will also be trying to choose for you. Fast forward to the early 2000s. Fast forward to the early 2000s. And those 2 gentlemen, Kjell Nordström and Jonas Ridderström, these guys wrote this book called Karaoke Capitalism. I had the pleasure of hosting them in Microsoft maybe 2 or 3 times and having them speak to many people. And they had some fascinating thoughts and ideas. And they were mostly around individualism, the rise of individualism, and the power of choice. I think they spotted it the first time when they went to a discotheque. And yes, at that time, discotheques were still called discotheques. I don't know what they're called now. Yeah, clubs. Okay. And they went there, and then they noticed that there was this girl who's dancing completely off rhythm. Like, she was all in, but she was completely off rhythm. And when they concentrated a little bit, it turned out that she was not actually dancing to the song that was playing. She was actually dancing to the song that she liked on her own iPod. And that sort of like drove many thoughts, many ideas afterward about choice. And they argued that technology and open markets contributed to a world where instead of you being driven by chance, chance meaning I was born in Somalia, or I was born in Egypt, or my parents were poor, or I speak only Arabic, from chance to choice. And they argued that there's a world where you can actually be free to know what you want to know, go where you want to go, do what you want to do, and be what you want to be. Know what you want to know, go where you want to go, do what you want to do, and be who you want to be. Powerful. I actually thought about it, and there's some amazing examples too, because I know, for example, some of my Egyptian friends who went to civil engineering only for a few years later, instead of becoming an Egyptian civil engineer, to become an American stockbroker. Okay? I have 2 friends who are actually both studied medicine and were cosmetic surgeons, who instead of being Egyptian cosmetic surgeons, have become Canadian software developers. Okay? It was by choice. Those gentlemen also warned that the more means you have, the more money, the more resources you have, the more free you can become, the more choices you can become. So choices are there, individualism is there, opportunities are there, but the big question was, it was governed by the means. Today, extremely digital. Digital things, digital buzzwords, sort of like everywhere. And in reality, what digital has done is it reduced the dependency a little bit on those means, on those resources. Because today, with digital technology, you can also know what you want to know and study abroad. You can go where you want to go, sometimes without even leaving the place you're in, and getting sort of like 3D dimensions of some amazing things. You can do what you want to do You can do a different degree. You can start a new business. You can even start a revolution online, or it's through social media, and be who you want to be. And those buzzwords like, I don't know, machine learning, natural interfaces, artificial intelligence, and so on, have become so normal. Crowdsourcing, I mean, you can be part of a big movement writing software that competes with the largest and the biggest companies in the world. The choice is there, the tools are there, and you don't actually need to be rich in order to do that. So digital technology brought down those barriers. A 10-year-old today, a 10-year-old can actually talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. He can or she can become an ethical hacker who ends up being either employed by or arrested by the intelligence authorities. Okay? Different world. And that brings again some of those elements about the good and the bad. In the days of we chose for you, there was good and there was bad. In the days of digital opening everything and choices, there is good and there is bad. It will all depend on us. Now, you may argue that research and development and big product development is big company or big resources play. Big companies are setting the agenda, okay, or big budgets are setting the agenda. But at the same time, you have to remember that innovation can happen anywhere. Innovation can happen anywhere. I had the pleasure of starting a unit in Microsoft that's called For Africa. And it's interesting because I'm the third speaker in a row without coordination who touches on Africa. Okay. So I had the pleasure of working with some African governments, and maybe more interestingly, with some African startups who did their own thing, their own innovation, their own thinking to solve problems and to solve issues that only they feel. That the smartest and richest companies or people in the Western world have no idea about, and therefore can struggle to even think of how to address. We talk about Uber and ride sharing, we talk about Airbnb and bed sharing or room sharing. There's a company called Movas in Kenya that actually allows people to share unused credit from their prepaid phone credit and not go back to the telco provider. There's a company called Mkopa that actually started equipping houses that are off the electricity grid, completely off the electricity grid, with set-top boxes that are actually solar cells that allows them to have some electricity in their homes and some tools in order to charge their phones. And with time, and as you build credit, and as you do as you do these things, you can get more services. You can get television services, or you can get heating services, or you can get television services with education and healthcare content. There's a company called Agin that actually allows farmers, with a click of a $20 or a $15 phone, not an expensive, iPhone or anything like that, to actually get a loan, to get a micro loan in order to hire temporary workers to help them through the harvest period. Countries like Botswana are trying to change the way their postal services work, and it becomes sort of like the social delivery for the whole country. And Zimbabwe, a country that is incredibly under pressure, has a very advanced system for tax collection to at least make things a little bit easier, on the life of the citizens. So you don't get hit twice by, paying taxes and also suffering while you pay them. Innovation is everywhere, and the challenges that we face and the issues that face us every day can actually push us and make us more creative and much, much better and more innovative. Now, companies do worry about their products, their own customers, their own operations, their own employees. I mean, that's the 4 pillars of any company's digital transformation. Industry 4.0 at its best. Even government starts thinking the same way. They worry about how they interact with their own citizens. They think about how to improve citizen services, ideally. They think about their own operations and budgets, and they think how they can make government employees more productive. Okay, So whether it's a company or whether it's a government, or whether it's us as a citizen sitting in the back and thinking of their rights, of their basic rights, education, healthcare, justice, and freedom, or thinking about the pillars of economic development, infrastructure, the investment climate, capacity building, innovation. What can digital technology really do? I know the answer is a lot. In fact, you may argue that digital, maybe we are reaching a level where digital technology can be part of the realization of those dreams. In fact, I was thinking before I start here that prior to my TEDx speech in Cairo, or after my TEDx speech in Cairo, I had an action to work on the foundation that I created, or being a social entrepreneur. And now I was thinking, well, what about this one? What will I do? And I'm thinking maybe I should spend more time learning and contributing to the concept of digital transformation of nations. Now we're at the end, and Ali Bey has put me in this slot under the big sort of like title of come on, right? Those last thing is the come on, okay? So that's my sort of like come on to you, okay? To you spirits in this digital world. So my come on message is embrace it, enjoy it, don't be lost, don't be worried. There's lots of good. There's lots and lots of good. And I think we're learning every day about the bad and how we take care and sort of like isolate the bad. You know, this whole piece of know what you want to know, go where you want to go, do what you want to do, be what you want to be is real, and can be done. So I'm inviting you, or my come on, is not only about connection. Yes, connect, but more importantly, communicate. And it's also about ambition. So dream, but also innovate. And don't do it alone, don't be lonely, connect, communicate, dream, innovate. And a very, very, very small footnote, completely out of context, to those incredibly beautiful but equally crazy countries that I'm deeply in love with, Egypt and Turkey. Get closer, and I will love you even more. Thank you very much.